People talking about it over the weekend. I wanted to get into that right now here on News Radio WRVA, but I need some help. If you're a Navy veteran, I want to get your reaction to the story about the USS Lincoln. And here's the number: 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. Send me a text message. I want to get your thoughts on this. Again, my son is not active duty, so I cannot speak about this with any kind of certainty or expertise or any empathy. So I need some people that are either Navy veterans. I'm not going to ask active duty because you guys aren't supposed to speak out about these things. But if there are people in our audience, and I know there are, that are retired Navy, I want to get your thoughts. If you had a service member that in your family that was forward deployed, I'd love to hear from you this morning as well at 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140. I don't have all the answers to this. I'm just going to tell you right now, talk show host, going to be completely transparent. I don't have all the answers, but I do have my thoughts when it comes to this story about the USS Lincoln. I saw Mark Warner sounding off about it. Burt Muskow is going to run against him, also sounding off about this. But here's my perspective. My perspective is going to be different than Navy veterans. So again, that's why I think it's important that I hear from them this morning. 833-804-1140. The USS Lincoln has been on a long deployment to the Middle East, longer than they would have anticipated, longer than they could have anticipated. And it has been very strenuous for the personnel and the ship itself. The U.S. Navy can be out to sea and deployed just about longer than any other Navy in the world. During World War II, after the fall of Nazi Germany, Churchill and the Brits wanted to come serve with the U.S. Army in the Pacific. And against Admiral Nimitz's wishes and best thoughts, he goes, fine, we'll bring them in. Truman, I believe, brought them over. I think it was Truman who brought them over and said, okay, they could serve. One of the things that was shocking was the Brits were like, we can be out to sea for X amount of days. And the U.S. Navy looked like we're out a lot longer than that. So it's always been, since World War II, the U.S. Navy has got the best supply lines, the best oilers and tankers that go along with them and supply ships. Military Sea Lift Command does amazing work. And they can replenish those ships at sea wherever they are around the world. We do a great job of that. But even this deployment was longer, and it taxed this crew under war conditions. They're shooting, they're firing, they have sorties going out. This is a high-stress situation. And normally we'll rotate our ships in and out to not overtax the ship and not overtax the crew. But this one was a long, extended deployment in the Middle East. There was a woman who I guess you can call her a whistleblower, who went on CNN. I saw the video with her and Jake Tapper saying, wait a minute, they're not getting food, they're not getting rest, the conditions are horrible, morale is awful. And there are sailors that wanted to jump overboard because the situation is way too much for them. And all of a sudden, boom, people start coming out of the woodwork, attacking the president. It's Trump's war, it's Trump's war, it's Trump's war. Politics ends at our shores, folks. Politics ends at our shores. And if these young men and women are putting themselves in harm's way, then they deserve nothing but our support. And when we mix politics with them being in harm's way, nothing good's going to come of that. And that's where I want to bring this to Navy vets and ask you your thoughts on this. So she said, food's awful, conditions are awful, they're stressed, they're under complete duress, and morale's falling apart. Want to get thoughts of a U.S. Navy veteran. Here's my point of view. That a lot of what I saw over the weekend in social media was garbage. They were showing what they were saying were the conditions and the food that the sailors were getting. But then you noticed the bulkheads, which are walls, were cinder block in some of these photos. That's not a Navy ship. So people are trying to pass this off. And again, anytime there's any disinformation they can throw out there, you blow it up to try to beat up the president. I am not going to tell you that the sailors are not under major duress. And yeah, there's some mental health issues when you're under that kind of duress, being out there for so long. No port calls. Brian Kilmeade just explained the reasons why they weren't able to get their port calls is because they're in a shooting war right there in the middle of the Strait of Hormuz in the Gulf. And if they would have put the aircraft carrier to Bahrain and some of these other places, they're under attack. So again, you have a plan, but war is hell, and they're going to come up with a different plan, and you never know what the contingencies are. So they've stayed out there, been resupplied by Military Sea Lift Command, but it's not the same as getting a port call, being able to get off the ship, relax for a minute, and then get back on. So these sailors have been stressed to the max, and they've been pushed. Couple things that go on. Donald Trump doesn't get to decide how long they stay out there. He's the president. That's the Chief of Naval Operations, and the Department of the Navy decides how long they're out there. The one thing I'll tell you is it's up to the captain to decide whether they need to rotate out. And combat effectiveness, once things start breaking down, then he reaches up through his chain of command going, hey, listen, our guys are becoming less effective. We need to rotate out, bring another aircraft carrier to take his place. And that's what's going to happen with a George Washington going in there to sub out for the Lincoln. But the whole thing of the news media running off with it, Democratic politicians running off with it, it's ridiculous. And then the rumor mills that run around are even more ridiculous and over the top. And these family members are concerned. I know this. I know when my son went to boot camp, I was concerned. I slept with the phone in my hand every night and was just wondering if I was going to get a phone call. And the hardest thing in the world for these military parents are, no news is good news. No news is good news. And that's a complete opposite of what you're used to when your kids are 17, 18 years old. You want them to check in with you. Honey, are you okay? Hey, pal, how you doing? No news is good news. And that is really, really, really difficult to get to know as a parent. But I also know as a parent in some of these Facebook groups and others that once you get just a little bit of information, you run with that because you get so limited information. So I'll give you an example. When he was going through boot camp, and again, I'm not trying to make this all about me, but I want some input from some veterans that have actually gone through all of this. Went through boot camp. There was a day that they were issuing uniforms. Everybody was late. It took longer than they thought. They didn't go to the galley to eat. Somebody had dropped out, had gotten a concussion, banged their head, came home and said, oh my gosh, the men in the unit aren't getting fed and they weren't allowed to go to sleep. So all of a sudden, this one tiny little piece of information spread like wildfire. All these parents started going crazy. Oh my gosh, they're starving our sons. My son comes home. I said, hey, what was up with that? He goes, you know what? It took longer. We were late for bed. And instead of going to the galley to eat, they brought us sack lunches. He goes, we never went without food. But all of a sudden, for 3 weeks, every parent was screaming, yelling at their congressman, raising holy heck because they were told their kids didn't get their kids weren't being fed properly. These little things, because we love these kids and we care for them so much, and you get so little information. Whatever information you have is today, and you hold on to it for 3 weeks because you don't hear anything. Again, no news is good news, but you hold on to that little piece like it's going on continually. I don't know. These are sailors. They're put in a tough position. And that's the whole thing about family members of military. You're put in a tough position. You're put in a position that none of the rest of us would ever sign up for. Your kids signed up for it. Your husband signed up for it. Your wife signed up for it. I know this from people that have been mentors to my son and people we know. None of us appreciate what they go through on a daily basis, what it's like to have them miss birthdays and holidays, but just the stress level of knowing that your loved one is in the Atlantic Ocean underneath the water as a submariner, and he's out there for 6 months, and you never get to hear from him for 6 months, and you're just hoping that you get a phone call from him saying hi, but you dread that it might be a phone call of something bad because no news is good news. It is tough. All right, I want to hear from some veterans as well. Please help me out with this because I want to get your perspective. 833-804-1140. 833-804-1140. I think a lot of this is people that just don't like the president and are looking for a reason. I think a lot of this is manipulated by social media, but I want to hear from you guys. 833-804-1140. 1140. 833-804-1140, the number for you to join us. Coming up on the program, we'll read the best text messages, 655, 755, 855. We'll have the Richmond Morning News Brief. Then school's getting back in Virginia. Some are already back, more are coming up. We're going to talk about what you need to remember now that the kids are going to be going back to school. All of that coming up here on Richmond's Morning News. 833-804-1140, the number for you to join us. Real quick, today's program is brought to you